Hey y'all. My persuasive speech is on suicide. My title is Suicide is Not Selfish. The first thing I'd like to start out with is a meme that really caught my attention. I'm going to turn my camera towards the computer screen so you can see it along with as I read it. But it states, "Suicide isn't cowardly. I'll tell you what is cowardly: treating people so badly that they want to end their lives," by Ashley Purdy. This specific purpose to the speech is to persuade others that suicide is brought on by mental illness, not because the person is selfish. It's a misconception that a lot of people have. My introduction is that suicide is not selfish. It's a last resort brought on by depression and other mental illness. My best friend Jeremy committed suicide in April of 2013, and this was after a long battle with PTSD that none of us knew he was struggling with. He's a Marine gunny sergeant, and unfortunately, his demons got the best of him. The thesis I have is that the person that commits suicide isn't selfish, but typically they're selfless because they've fought longer than we could ever know with their own demons inside just to stay around for us, and eventually those demons get the best of them. One of my first visual aids I'd like to use is a photo of Jeremy. This is one of my favorite photos of him. My kids actually made me this for my birthday. His name is Jeremy, and he's a gunny sergeant in the Marine Corps. This is possibly one of the worst griefs I've ever been through. So with suicide comes a stigma, and I'm hoping that whoever listens to this speech has a more sympathy than judgment towards anybody that they know has attempted or has committed suicide. For the first couple of years, Jeremy's family didn't want others to know how he passed away. And that was very difficult because being what they consider a survivor of suicide, I needed to reach out to people and talk to people about what happened, and we had to keep it quiet for a while. But they are more active in awareness now, and so I have been using my own personal experience with it to spread the word and hopefully change that stigma. One of the main points I want to make is what brings on suicidal thoughts. The most often cause of suicide is mental illness that's untreated, and the other one is drug abuse, which can coincide with the mental illness, but drug abuse just changes the chemical makeup of your brain and can lead to having those thoughts and attempting or succeeding at suicide. The second point I'd like to make is our risk factors. Some of them are previous suicide attempts, substance abuse, incarceration, family history of suicide, poor job security or low levels of satisfaction. If you're miserable in your job and your daily life, you may resort to taking your own life. History of being abused or witnessing continuous abuse. That is one of the things that can bring on PTSD. Being diagnosed with a serious medical condition such as cancer or HIV. Being socially isolated or a victim of bullying. We hear about that a lot, unfortunately, in the media, that kids that are bullied just have that low self-esteem and don't know how to escape it. And also being exposed to suicidal behavior. Signs and symptoms of suicidal tendencies: feeling hopeless, feeling trapped, feeling alone, feeling anxious or agitated, feel as if there's no reason to continue to live, think of suicide as a way out, experiencing mood swings, and abusing drugs or alcohol. As you can see, drugs and alcohol are a common factor in abuse. How to help someone that is suicidal: call 911. If someone threatens or leads you to believe in any way whatsoever that they may hurt themselves, call 911. Take them to a hospital. Do something. The worst thing you can do is nothing. If I had gotten a phone call or a text, even though he was in New York, that even led me to believe he was going to take his own life, I would have drove all night. I would have called every police station in his area. I would have called every person that lived by him. just to get somebody there. Listen to the person. Sometimes people that are suicidal don't need your judgment. They don't need your advice. They just need somebody to listen. So be that confidant, be that person they can go to it safely. Seek support or seek support groups to suggest to the person. There are a lot of suicide victims or abuse type of support groups. There's one locally here now called Foster's Voice. A young man committed suicide, and his family is very, very active in the community as far as bringing awareness and support for those of us that have survived somebody committing, or for those that have tried to commit or thought about committing suicide. Be present. Just be there for the person. Another point I'd like to make is the main point, that suicide is not selfish. Again, there's that stigma associated with it. And suicide is brought on by factors beyond the person's control. Nobody wants to commit suicide. Nobody wants to die, especially in the gruesome way that you would if you committed suicide. But just think about being so desperate that you get to that point. And that's where these people are. So don't be judgmental jerks. Be there for them. Be present. Help them. Seek help. I want to read a quote from a suicide attempt survivor that really hit home for me and that really summed it up. People who say that suicide is selfish always refer to the survivors. It's selfish to leave children, spouses, and other family members behind, so they say. They're not thinking about the survivors, or so they would have us believe. What they don't know is that those very loved ones are the reason why many people hang on for just one more day. They do think about their survivors, probably up until the very last moment in many cases. But the soul-crushing depression that envelops them leaves them feeling like there is no alternative, like the only way to get out is to opt out. And that is a devastating thought to endure. Until you've stared down the level of depression, until you've lost your soul to a sea of emptiness and darkness, you don't get to make those judgments. You might not understand it, and you are definitely entitled to your own feelings, but making those judgments and spreading that kind of negativity won't help the next person. In fact, it will only hurt others. And this is from There's Nothing Selfish About Suicide, written in 2014. Again, suicide is not selfish. It's not the answer, but it's not selfish for those that have done it. There shouldn't be that stigma. If you're having any of the signs or symptoms that I spoke about, please seek help. Call 911 yourself, take yourself to a hospital, call that friend, make that text. I'm telling you, suicide is not selfish. Let's remember them the way they would want us to and celebrate their lives instead of judging them and putting them down. Have a great night.